Hi, I'm Judy. Welcome to Go Within Yoga. Can we talk about depression and anxiety? Yeah, I'd really rather not, but this is a time of year when a lot of people, including myself, tend to suffer from seasonal affective disorder. And even if you're not suffering from that, let's say you're in the southern hemisphere, some people I know actually do suffer from SAD in the spring. But even if none of that's true for you, it's still a time of year that we may be experiencing grief, we may be experiencing depression, we may be missing loved ones. There are just so many reasons that depression and anxiety are very high at this time of year for a lot of people. I've been doing a real deep dive into that to see what yoga can do. And it turns out there's a lot that yoga can do to help, and I've been experimenting with it. And that is all what we're going to be all about in December and probably January as well. I will have a variety of practices for you. They're going to be a little different than my normal practices, and they're going to range from 40 minutes to 10 or 15. So there's something in there for everybody. I just wanted to talk about depression and anxiety a bit and what yoga can do for it. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff actually. That's why it's its own vlog. I have some notes. I have some quotes I'll be reading for you. So let's kick it off with what meridians do we want to concentrate on in December and January? And that would be our kidney and bladder meridians. The meridians, by the way, are paired yin and yang pairs. And the kidney is yin and the bladder is yang. Just a little side note there. And working on the kidney and the bladder meridians can help to decrease fear. And it's also, winter is the water element, and that is what kidney and bladder are associated with as well. And the other meridians that we'll continue to work on, they're actually more related to fall, but when you hear what they are related to, you'll know that they're good to work on during the winter as well, and that is the lung and large intestine meridians. And they deal with decreasing grief and increasing our immunity, specifically upper respiratory infections. So a lot of these practices, some of them are not based on meridians, many of them are based on kidney and bladder, and some have some element of lung and large intestine too. Now, I want to talk a little bit about depression. With depression, let's get to some of the good stuff right away. Generally, you need to move a little bit before you settle down into more calming and grounding practices. Because depression, we're very heavy. We find it difficult to move. We find it difficult to find our motivation. So we need to move a little bit to dispel some of that lethargy. And once we've done that, then we can begin to settle down into more restorative practices and find our calming energy. And our breath work that is good in depression is just simple one-to-one breathing. And it's just what it sounds like. You breathe in and out through your nose, and the inhales are the same as the exhales. So let's just stop and do that right now. And this is the great thing about breath work. You can do it anywhere. Your breath is always with you. So just wherever you are, eyes closed or open, depending where you are, seated, standing, just to begin to breathe in and out through your nose. Not trying to force it to do anything, just breathing in and out through your nose. And now we're going to take it into that one-to-one breath. So I will count 2 for the inhale, and I will count 2 for the exhale. So inhale, 1, 2. Exhale. 1, 2. Inhale. 1, 2. Exhale. 1, 2. Inhale. 1, 2. Exhale. 1, 2. And then maybe once you're comfortable with that, you make longer inhales and longer exhales. So it could be inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. And so on and so forth. And hopefully, even in this very, very short amount of time, you've noticed just a slight shift in your energy. Okay, so that is some good practices for depression. Now, anxiety is a little different. And anxiety, you need to center first because you're scattered. You're all over the place. You're thinking about the future. You're not letting go of the past. You're not in the present moment. You're worrying and you're fearful and you're nervous. So you need to center and ground and then move on to calm, restorative practices. And the breath work and breath ratio, that works very well for most people for anxiety. And remember, everybody is different. If I say this works well for anxiety and you try it and it makes you even more anxious, don't do it. Very simple. Do the things that make you feel better. So 1 to 2 is the ratio for anxiety generally. And that is what it sounds like. So if you're breathing in for 2, then you'd breathe out for 4. Let's just try that for a very short amount of time. Inhale, 1, 2. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 1, 2. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you've joined me for that, notice if maybe you feel a little bit more centered. We didn't do that for very long. Once you get comfortable with that ratio, perhaps you want to go on to a ratio of 1 to 3, in which case you'd be inhaling for 2 and exhaling for 6. Okay, now another really big point I want to make, it's something you've heard before, but the reason you hear it is because it's true. You need to fill your own cup in this season. Rest, relax, nurture. They are not dirty words. They are not words that are highly valued in the US, let's say, in many Western countries. But now in the winter time, now is the time to rest. Just like the trees rest so that they can bloom again in the spring. And we may think that the antidote for our anxiety and our depression is just to get really, really busy, right? And I know I've thought that in the past. And it's a matter of finding that balance of some activity, because if you aren't active at all, then you're going to be more depressed, but not overdoing it. And that looks different too for everybody. And it's not an easy balance to find. But we want to live in tune with nature. One of the big things that yoga means is union. And that can mean many different things to many different people. One of the things it means is trying to live in union with nature. And when we get away from that, which is very, very easy to do today, with all of our modern conveniences and our electric lights and our air conditioning and our heating, it's very easy to stay up too late rather than, in olden days when they had to light candles and lanterns and they went to bed at sunset. We don't do that anymore. And we don't rest enough. And if you don't rest now, chances are, in winter or in spring, you're going to get sick. So rest, fill your own cup first. Very, very important at this time of year. Maybe one of the most important things. Okay, moving on. Sorry for that. Now, a practice that is great for both depression and anxiety, oddly enough, are inversions. Inversion is generally when your head is below your heart. It has many benefits, depends on who you believe, but it can help increase your circulation, your lymph drainage, very, very important for your immune system, as well as something else. Ah, yes, increasing your energy. Maybe I need to do an inversion. Now, when you hear inversions, you probably think of some of the more difficult or more advanced versions. Headstand, shoulder stand, wheel pose. These are all great poses, but they're not great for everyone. And the good news is there are many, many much gentler versions of inversions. And I also want to give you the contraindications. If you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, if you have heart failure, if you have glaucoma or retinal detachment, you do not want to do inversions. Then that's not a good idea. But otherwise, I'm going to quickly go through some of the more gentle varieties of inversion, and some of them may surprise you. Some of them you may know, and some of you may not have thought of. I'm not going to demo them all, but I will try and demo a few. One of the ones you see in yoga practice all the time, down dog. Not everybody loves down dog, and I'm not going through all the variations and all the minutiae of how to do down dog, but this is a mild inversion. Now, if you can't do down dog, you can go ahead and come down to your elbows, which quite frankly I think is harder. Tuck your toes, and again, raise your hips to the sky, and this is dolphin pose. And really, really good to open up your shoulders. And now, while we're down here, child's pose. When you don't have your head on a block and you let it come to the mat, although you may need some help getting it to the mat, child's pose is a very calming pose, and it is a mild inversion. It's very accessible to most people. If you get cramps in your ankles or the soles of your feet, roll up a little blanket or towel, put it underneath your ankles, and put a blanket between your legs, your upper and lower legs, and that can help with that. Puppy pose is another good one. I personally like this. Not everybody does. You come into tabletop and let your arms come forward and your head come down onto the mat. And that is puppy pose. Another fairly accessible inversion. I do not have the camera set up for this, but other very accessible inversions are simple standing forward fold. That's it. You're standing up and you're folding forward. If you have back problems, may not be the best thing for you. And also wide-legged forward fold, where you take your legs out as wide as you can, and the feet can be either pointing straight forward or in towards each other, and you fold down. Now, another thing you can do with inversions is you can put your head on a block. Now, one of the interesting things, as I've been doing a lot of reading about depression and anxiety, as I said, is where you place your head. If you're using a block, get deeper into an inversion, where you place your head can make a difference whether it's more helpful for anxiety versus depression. So with depression, you want your head on the front of your head, so kind of your forehead. And with anxiety, you want it more on the crown of your head. I don't think, and again, this is something you need to investigate on your own. Let's see if I missed anything. Legs up the wall, of course. You've seen me do that like a million times probably in our practices. Legs off the wall, especially when you have your seat on a bolster. So then your chest is raised and your head is below your heart. Also an extremely accessible pose for most people, as well as bridge pose. It is a partial inversion as well. Also pretty accessible to most people, not everybody, but. And I think that covers our inversions. So some of these tools I have just talked about. I wanted to read you this quote by Bo Forbes, and that is one of the books I've been reading. It says, "These tools, breathing exercises, focused awareness, and restorative yoga become especially powerful," and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, this isn't word for word, "because our nervous system, breath, the present moment, and our mind are in the body." And we always have our body with us. That's my interjection. Combining yoga's meditative practices with native wisdom of the body makes our mental and physical work more integrative and amplifies its benefits. So bottom line, she's saying that, well, breath work is great to do, and restorative yoga is great to do, and asana on its own and breath work on its own are great to do, but when you put all these things together, you're getting more bang for your buck. And who doesn't want that? Okay, we're getting towards the end. Thank you for bearing with me. Now, another thing, I think it was Amy Weintraub talks about, to make your yoga practice work for you when you feel depressed or when you feel anxious, you need 3 things. And these 3 things are from the niyamas. You need tapas, which is often translated as heat or discipline. You need ishvara pranihara, and that is surrender. And I actually have a short vlog about that. And svadhyaya. Svadhyaya is self-study. And that doesn't involve any books. It involves going inside. And as I've mentioned, seeing how these practices work for you, picking the things that do work for you, letting go of the things that don't. So it's just being very aware of how the breath work and the various poses and meditation, how that all works for you, whether or not it's helping. And I wanted to read this quote from Leslie Kaminoff. "In order to know when you've engaged in tapas, discipline, and when you're engaged in ishvara pranihara, surrender, you need to know the difference between the two," which is svadhyaya, self-study. I really love that quote. What is svadhyaya? It's knowing, when you need the discipline, when you need to surrender. And that may not be surrender to higher power. It may be surrendering your ego. Just food for thought. And I did want to talk one more quote about tapas. It's from the book Words to Live By. Unfortunately, I did not write down which page it was from or what day it's from. It's a book of quotes and thoughts, day by day kind of. It's not a devotional, but that kind of thing. And this is, once again, a little more about tapas. "There are 2 alternatives. Number 1, what is pleasant. Number 2, what is beneficial. Number 1 we get immediately, but it comes and it goes. Number 2 requires effort, but its benefits stay with us and benefit those around us as well. And that is tapas, discipline. So the point here was you need that discipline. If you really want to break through depression and or anxiety, you need a daily practice. And that doesn't have to be 20 minutes, half an hour, an hour. 10 minutes is fine. Whatever you can do. 5 minutes on your mat. That's great. A minute in your bed doing some breath work. Wonderful. Which leads me to my very last point. Judy, what do I do if I can't get out of bed? Breathe. Take your attention to your breath. The breath is always there. As the breath goes, so does your mind. So just begin to breathe. If you're lying in your bed, you don't even have to sit up. You can just begin to breathe. You can do the breathing practices I've outlined here. You can do Nadi Shodhana, which I have another vlog on. If you're depressed, you could do Kapalabhati breath. I have another vlog on that as well. Do not do that if you're anxious, because that is most likely going to make you feel more anxious. But it's a very, very energizing practice, and you can do it just laying in bed. And you can do 3-part breath, which is breathing into your belly, breathing into the side of your body, your ribs, and then breathing into your collarbones, and then breathing out down the same way. So, I know I've given you a lot of food for thought here, a lot of things to unpack. I really hope that they've been helpful for you. This is a subject I'm going to continue to learn about because, as I said, this is something I struggle with every year at this time of year. I've been practicing some of these practices since November. I don't know yet whether or not they're helping. They're certainly not hurting. And it can take time, and especially that's another point. Depression tends to take longer to get through than anxiety does. But again, it's an individual thing. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something that is useful to you. I hope you're looking forward to my yin-yang practices that we're going to have all month in December and probably in January as well. Some of them I put together at a time when I was feeling just a little and they've been really helpful for me. And I hope they're really helpful for you. If you enjoyed this talk, go ahead and click the like button. And if you want to learn more about yoga philosophy, how to use yoga for depression and anxiety, go ahead and click subscribe.